Nobody likes being wrong. This is especially true in Yu-Gi-Oh! When we're constantly bombarded with new releases and speculations from all parts of the community. And I think it is funny sometimes, though, to take a lighthearted look at some times that maybe I personally was wrong about cards. Now, I did this a couple weeks ago. The video was titled 5 Bad Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that I thought were really good. And today, I wanted to talk about 5 more cards that I thought were going to be great. I thought were going to do something amazing and ended up flopping pretty hard in a general sense. There are a couple of these that maybe some people played, but overall, the card just didn't turn out to be very good. Now, I think this is kind of fun to do because you just never know what people are going to play. We can do all the speculating that we want, but the truth is that when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh!, when it comes to so many different variables of what people want to play, what people think they have to play, it's basically impossible to predict what people are actually going to do. Now, the first card that I want to talk about is one that I think a lot of people thought was going to be ridiculous, and that is Supply Squad. Now, I know what you're going to say. If you were around when Supply Squad first came out, you might remember that it was played in a few of the early Burning Abyss builds, as well as Yang Zings and sort of like Fire Kings and stuff like that. However, Supply Squad isn't very good, and the reason that I didn't realize that it wasn't very good is that because Supply Squad is a glorified Upstart Goblin, and you might have heard other people say that, and it's pretty true. So when Supply Squad first came out, Upstart Goblin was at 3, and there weren't a ton of benefits playing Supply Squad over Upstart Goblin, because for Supply Squad to be better, you have to activate it twice, or resolve it twice, I should say. And for a lot of decks, that's just not going to happen. Obviously, nowadays, Supply Squad's never going to last on the field with cards like Twin Twister and Trident. But even back in the day, it was pretty hard to make Supply Squad resolve twice. It's so susceptible to everything. Mystical Space Typhoon, Cosmic Cyclone. Back in that time, people were playing Phoenix Wing Wing Blast, so you could just bounce back to the top of the deck. And it's just too slow. Not only that, but you could open hands with multiple Supply Squad. Sorry, this card's like so hard to say right now. But you could open hands with multiples, and it just wouldn't really do anything unless you had a really good hand already. So a card that just makes your good hands really good and your bad hands pretty shitty isn't one that a lot of good players gravitate towards. Now, we've seen this pop up in a couple different rogue strategies over the years. But generally speaking, as long as Upstart Goblin has been at 3, it's just been a strictly better version of Supply Squad. Cards just don't last on the field very long unless they have built-in protection, and even then, a lot of the cards that have built-in protection just get kaiju'd. Now, Supply Squad can't get kaiju'd, but it's just not good enough. And I think the time that when I realized that it wasn't good enough was at a YCS where I played against Supply Squad in Fire Kings, and the guy drew 7 cards off of them, and I just still won. He had 7 cards that he drew off of Supply Squad for free, and it didn't matter. And that's when I realized that, hey, maybe this card isn't really worth it. Because if you can get that many draws, but your deck just doesn't do anything, Supply Squad isn't going to help you out. The next card that I wanted to talk about is one that I try to make work, I feel like every month here, the Phantom Knights of Fragile Armor. Now, most of the Phantom Knight cards are level 3. However, there are a couple level 4s and even a couple level 2s. But the main one that I want to fixate on is the Phantom Knights of Fragile Armor because I think it has the best effect. So its first effect lets you special summon it from your hand if a Phantom Knight's destroyed by battle or card effect. That's not super relevant. You really don't want to draw this thing just like in general. So I guess it's good for just getting out of the hand. But the more important part is that you can banish in the graveyard to discard a Phantom Knights and then draw a card. That's pretty good, and it's a card that I always feel like I want to send to the grave. It's good because the worst hands in the old pure Phantom Knight decks were when you drew all Phantom Knights that you couldn't do anything with. So this kind of got you out of those. And then when I moved on to Zombie Phantom Knights, I like this card a lot because you could discard it for DDR if you drew it. And then also it was a level 4 monster that banished itself so that you could special summon it off of Levier the Sea Dragon to make Psyframe Lord Omega with Unizombie. Now, that play actually came up a few times, and I did actually get an invite last year, I think, playing this card in the main deck. I ended up cutting it from the deck when I went to ARG Chicago, or ARG Detroit, I should say, and I got a top 16 at that ARG, and this wasn't in the deck list because it's just not consistent enough. It doesn't really mesh well with anything, and it's one of those cards that you never want to draw, you only want to send or search, and cards like that don't have a huge impact and are just okay, generally just aren't worth playing. When you play cards that you just don't want to see ever, they better be giving you some amazing trade-off. Like, you don't want to draw Garnet, but Brilliant Fusion is crazy. This card just wasn't good enough to warrant the few times that you would draw it. It was a brick, but I still want to make this card work, and maybe it will work someday. But for now, it's just going to sit in my deck box. Now, the next card that I want to talk about is a card that sort of foreshadowed the cards that I liked later on in the game, and that is Double Summon. I played this card in so many different decks. The most notable one is that I played it in Old School Madolche back when they only had 2 sets of releases. Now, back then, you really needed something to put that extra summon on the field, and before Brilliant Fusion came out, this was pretty much the best way to do that. I used to play a lot of normal summon heavy decks, and I've talked about it before that I think that's the reason why I like Brilliant Fusion so much, is because it makes a lot of decks that I used to play finally playable, and Double Summon clearly isn't that great. It's a -1, it doesn't gain you any advantage, all it does is give you an extra normal summon, and it's not consistent just because in a lot of decks that you want to play it in, you want to open it, so you want to play multiple copies, but you can't even use multiple copies, so I don't know. I played this in, I think the only time I ever did good with this was when I topped the regional with Madolches, where I actually played Brilliant Fusion and Double Summon, and it's just not very good. Maybe it'll be good someday. I really doubt it, though. It's just it's too simple, and it's not impactful enough for -1 to, it's not like on the same level of like Book of Moon or anything, and now that we have Brilliant Fusion especially, this card is just completely irrelevant. The next card I want to talk about, I played at several events back when I played Satellar Knights, and that is Satellar Knight Sirius, and man, this card is really, really bad. I know a lot of people like this card, and maybe people don't play Satellar Knights anymore, so no one cares, but this card is basically a Pot of Avarice on legs. It seems really good, except that what I didn't realize at the time is that it's just the absolute worst brick, and by the time that you have 5 Tellar Knight cards in your grave, you either have already won or are in a losing position. There was basically, the only time that you ever wanted to summon this was after you've used all 3 of your Altiers, and it's like, does that ever happen? Maybe every like once in 20 games, but the times that you would open this card were just completely atrocious. It's just, I think I played this at 2 different ARG Circuit Series events, and it was just so terrible at both of those. And I know people like this card. I know people played this card, and other people just didn't have any problems with it because it's good. It's really good in the mid to late game. The problem is that Satellar Knights are sort of made or broken on their first turn openings, and this card just contributed to the worst hands possible. There are a lot of cards like that, and sort of this card goes along with the Phantom Knights of Fragile Armor theory, where you just never wanted to draw it. You only wanted to search it, and cards like that, I mean, this one's a little more impactful than Fragile Armor, but it still just wasn't worth the brick times that I drew it. There was one event, if I remember correctly, where we had 3 Rhoda and 3 Deneb, and I still opened this more than I opened Rhoda or Deneb that entire tournament. And yeah, after that, I decided to not play this card. I think it was the right choice. I think most people realized that was the right choice, but I really wanted this card to be good. Now the last card is one that I think has the most potential out of any card on this list, and that is Monster Slots. Now, a lot of people might not know about this card, and what it is, it's a spell card that says target 1 face a monster you control and 1 monster in your graveyard with the same level, banish the target from the graveyard, then draw 1 card and reveal it. Then, if the card you drew is a monster with the same level as the monster on the field, special summon it. So, basically, this is like an Upstart Goblin. I don't want to say like on steroids because it's really not, but it's an Upstart Goblin that can potentially get you an extra summon. Now, the problem with it becomes pretty apparent when you see that you need too much setup. You need not only a monster on the field, you need not only a monster in graveyard, you need to also draw the monster slots. And it's like, Upstart Goblin's just better, Pot of Desires is just better, pretty much all the draw spells are better than this, but there might be a deck sometime that plays all of just like the same level of monsters. I think the one that I most heavily considered monster slots in was like a 40-card big Burning Abyss deck that just played a bunch of level 3 monsters. Back when Graf, Seer, and Skarm were all at 3, I guess Skarm is still at 3, but back when they're all unlimited and we had Tour Guide, I thought about playing monster slots just as like another combo extender, and it's not like Toy Vendor where if you draw a card that's not if you draw a card that's not the same level as a monster, you at least get to keep it. You also have to reveal it, which is sort of like a pretty big downside, but you don't have to like discard it or anything, which makes this card a little more appealing than a lot of cards similar to it. I don't know. I do want to say this card has most potential because it is pretty good, and I could see it being played in a deck that sort of like a Monster Mash type strategy. I know Monster Mash as a deck really isn't around anymore, but Monster Mash decks conventionally have had either a lot of level 3s or a lot of level 4s, and in that scenario, Monster Slots could be worth running. I don't know if anyone's ever played it. If anyone has ever played this card to a successful finish at a real tournament, please let me know, but I don't think anyone has. And anyway, that's going to wrap it up. I'm actually at the WCQ during the time this is uploaded. I thought I would sort of stagger some videos so you guys had something to watch. So if you are at the WCQ this weekend, feel free to say hello to me because I will be there, and I promise I won't be as awkward as I'm coming off in this conclusion of the video. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.